This is Penn Woods interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends. The date is April the 24th, 1971. It's the date of the annual Western Heritage Awards of the National Cowboy Hall of Fame. I'm at the Lincoln Plaza Inn, and I'm visiting with one of the great Oklahoma rodeo men, really one of the country's great rodeo men, and one we're proud to have from Oklahoma, Freckles Brown. Freckles, to start with, I'd like for you to tell me what your real name is, your real first name, and who your parents were, where you were born.
Penn, my real name is Warren G. Brown. Warren Granger Brown is my name, and my dad's name was Richard Granger Brown, and I was born and raised in Wyoming, about halfway between Lingle and Fort Laramie, on the Platte River, about 2 miles from the Platte River. My folks homesteaded there a long time ago. I don't know, anyway, that's where I grew up, and we farmed up there with horses, and my dad wasn't a rancher. He just had a farm, and we irrigated, and we raised hay and fed cattle in the winter, but it was strictly a horse operation, and we had, he broke a lot of horses for ranchers, broke them to work and sold them as teams, and after they'd work them a little bit, well, then I'd go to riding them, and I really, since I was a little old kid, all I dreamed about was being a cowboy. I wanted to be a cowboy all my life, and that's all I thought about. I never thought about rodeo, and I thought if I could ever get good enough to hold down a job on a ranch, I'd be tickled to death and ride a horse that didn't have collar marks on him.
How did you get to Oklahoma?
Well, that's a long story. I went to Arizona and worked on ranches there, and back to Wyoming, and when World War II came along, I enlisted in the Army, and I got in. They swore me in at Cheyenne, and they put me on a train, and I came to Fort Sill to take basic training. And I took basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in horse-drawn artillery in February of '42.
Were you taking? Were you with an Oklahoma unit, or were you with just a group of inductees?
No, I just with a group of inductees.
What impressed you about Oklahoma to make you decide you'd stay?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the things that really impressed me. I was in there with, there's a few guys like me, was from Montana and Wyoming from the north, and there was a bunch of guys from New Jersey and back east, and they was all discussed with everything and told them, well, they can give this Oklahoma back to the Indians and stuff, and they got to having a few little rodeos around there at Madison Park, Oklahoma, and Craterville Park, and got to riding in them, and I was, we bivouacked a lot on that wildlife refuge out there in the Wichita Mountains. And I thought, gee, they talk about this. This is the prettiest country I ever seen. It was a great cattle country. It would have been, I thought, a great ranch. And there was timber and grass and water. And I got to knowing a lot of the natives around there and really liked them. There's ranch people and good, solid country people. And I made a lot of friends. And then when I went overseas, I went to China. And when I come back when the war was over, I just stayed in Oklahoma. And I decided that I liked it here and bought a place. And I've been here ever since.
When did you start rodeoing?
Well, I rode my first bull in at Wilcox, Arizona in 1937. I was 16 years old.
How'd you come out?
I didn't win anything. I rode him, and I was tickled to death to ride him, and I was working on a ranch up there, and another guy paid my entrance fees, and but he was happy. He didn't. There wasn't been much. I could have won about $25, I think, if I'd have won it, but I rode my bull and didn't win anything. But I was real tickled because it didn't fall off.
When did you first win something?
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure when I first won something. I won my first trophy. I rode a bronc. I was working on a ranch about 50 miles out of Cody, Wyoming, up there in the mountains, and I rode a bronc into that rodeo at Cody, and I won the bull riding there, and I won second in the bronc riding, and I won my trophy. I won the first bull riding trophy I ever got, and that's in 1941.
Now, when you came to Oklahoma, you live now where? It's Soper. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Have you lived there since the war?
No. When I got back in the fall of 1945, when the war was over, I stayed around Lawton, and we bought a place between Lawton and Duncan, and I lived there for about 18 years. And in '64, we sold out there and moved to down by Soper, Oklahoma, in southeast Oklahoma, and. I don't know, it's a fine place. I haven't got anything against around Lawton. We got along fine. I had a lot of friends there and everything, but it's hard to spread out, and land costs quite a bit, and I could run cattle down there in Soper I get a little more country and run a few more cattle a little cheaper than I could up there at Lawton.
You were ranching and rodeoing all this time?
Yeah, Penn sure was.
How many years have you rodeoed?
33 years.
You've rodeoed 33
Yeah.
years. I wonder if that's a record.
Well, I don't know. I sure don't know about that. I know everybody's always talking about when you're going to quit and why don't you quit and everything. And I feel real good. I like to ride and like to rodeo and feel really good. And I'm always needing money, and I'm always getting home and having to buy some feed or something. And I rodeo for two reasons: to make money and because I like to.
How old are you now?
I'm 50 years old.
50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably the oldest person certainly in the big leagues in rodeo today, aren't you? In the RCA.
Well, yeah, Ben, I think so.
Are you among the top 15 in anything now?
No, I'm sure not. I broke my leg last year, and I didn't get started till just at Houston this year, and I haven't won hardly anything. I placed at a match bull riding at Georgetown, Texas here about 2 weeks ago, and Ronnie Bowman down there that lives there, a real good bull rider. Him and I've been conducting a bull riding school this last week, and it was real. We had a real good school, and in fact, I kind of sneaked off to come up here. It gets over with tonight down there.
Tell me about these bull riding schools.
Well, these boys just pay a tuition. We charge them $150 a piece for a week, and we show them how to ride and how to hold. A lot of them have been on bulls, and it's a real good thing for them and us both. We had to furnish a lot of bulls. I think we had about 60 bulls down there, and some of them really buck good, and some of them not much. We try to stay away from any bad fighting bulls or anything that might hurt those boys, and we show them what to do and what not to do, and we try to show them how to get away from a bull to try to keep them getting hurt. And the main thing, of course, not all of them make bull riders, but we show them a lot, and they either know when they get through, they know if they can or not. And they don't have to. At rodeo, you can pay your entrance fees, and say, well, if I'd drawn a little different bull, I might have been all right. But when that's over, they kind of have an idea of whether they can go on or not.
Do you ever get boys who've never been on a bull?
Yeah, we get a few, not very many. And some boys just one of those things you can't ever tell about. Some boys just can't ride, and some boys have got a lot of ability. All they need to be is just shown a little bit, and have got a lot of promise. And some of them want to rodeo, and some of them have jobs, and some of them going to college. The most of our boys come out of college, and some of them, I think, more than I think they just want to kind of ride for their own satisfaction more than try to make money.
Jim Shoulders was telling me about one he had. I think it was a vacationer from California, 30 or 40 years old, and he had never been on an animal, but he just wanted to spend a 2-week vacation playing with it. Never.
Yeah, that sounds typical. There's a lot of people have talked to me, about want to ride, they want to see if they can, and you can kind of look at a guy and tell. Some of them just are not physically in shape to ride, but it's just like any other sport. You've got to be in shape. You get hurt real bad if you're not.
Let's talk about some of the Oklahoma Cowboys. To begin with, let's backtrack as far as you remember thinking of some of the personalities, the Oklahoma personalities that you have known. Let's think about the earliest Oklahoma Cowboys you worked with.
Oh, Lewis Brooks was an outstanding cowboy. He was an all-around hand, and he was an all-around champion cowboy, and he was from Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And he's one of the few guys I know of that quit right in his prime. I mean, right after he won an all-around champion of the world, he quit. He married a girl with a lot of money, and they've got ranches, and he moved to Texas, but he's got ranches in Texas and Colorado, and he's done real good financially. And I think he was really an outstanding cowboy, and you don't hear much about him now because he quit before there was much news media out on cowboys.
Well, can you think of anything about him as a personality or an individual?
Yeah, he had a real strong personality. We've got Bill Letterman. He's from up here in Montana, in our Hall of Fame here. But Lewis reminded me a lot of Bill. He was a big guy and could do almost anything. He could ride rope, and he had a happy-go-lucky attitude, and he was just an outstanding cowboy. He had a lot of ability, and if he'd have been a football player or a baseball or anything, he'd have been outstanding in that, too.
Did you know Clyde Brown?
Real well. Knew Clyde real good. Real sharp guy. Sagey, they called him Sagey. I know all the Burks, Clyde, Jiggs, and Dee. And Jiggs is happy-go-lucky and a great cowboy. Could rope and bulldog, and Clyde could do everything real good. and he was a little guy, and he had to use his head and use his horses. He was a great horseman, and he's a great roper, and he got killed, you might say, in his prime there at Denver at Hazen Steer Turno. But he was an outstanding guy. Everybody loved him, and he had he enjoyed living and had a lot of fun, but he had a lot of business head on him, and their parents got killed, and Clyde kind of looked after the whole family and kind of raised them, and he was kind of the business manager for all of them.
Can you think of any incidents or either funny or other type that dealt with Clyde, any anecdotes?
Yeah, I sure can. D. Burke is a real good friend of mine. He's the father of Barry Burke. He trod the straight and narrow and real straight lace and really business rope. And Jig's just the opposite. He partied and had a good time and liked to fish. And when they get ready to go to rodeo, Clyde'd have to go to the creek and spend maybe 2 or 3 hours finding jigs. He'd be somewhere in a fishing hole fishing. And somebody told Clyde, Clyde was telling me, he said, I'm going to leave that dang kid some of these days. I'm just going to run off and leave him. He ain't never ready. And one of these other cowboys said, you better not leave him or you'll starve to death. And Jiggs was a good cowboy. He won a lot of money.
I'm going to swing over to the other side of the thing. I want to... going now from the Burks, what about Barry Burke? You know Barry and...
Barry is a real fine lad. I've known him since he was a little bitty kid. In fact, just a baby. Dee and I went to rodeo. Dee was in Fort Sill same time I was, and we went to rodeos, and Barry was Roy, Barry's little brother. He's a great football player and a great rodeo hand right now. But anyway, Roy wasn't even born then. Barry was about 2 years old and when we was going to them rodeos. And Barry grew up with a piggy string in his hand, and if any guy ever had a right to be a cowboy, it's Barry. I mean, he was raised with, and he is. He's a real good cowboy, real good hand, real conscientious, and he's a whole lot like Dee. He's real conscientious and really tries and practices, and he puts all his heart into it. He don't even think about anything else. And his little brother Roy is just, he reminds me more of Jiggs. He's happy-go-lucky and a great football player, and he likes to rodeo, and he's got a world of talent, and but he's not as serious about it as Barry. And I hate to say this to Barry, but I really think Roy is liable to go further than Barry even.
Let's talk about Jim Shoulders a little bit.
Yeah, Jim, I've known Jim a long time. I got a lot of respect for him. He's a great cowboy, and I think one of the great assets to Oklahoma and the rodeo, the whole rodeo world. Jim's a great cowboy. There's no getting around him. And one of the things I think that's outstanding about Jim, I've seen him go a lot of times and hurt and ride. And well, I'll tell you, Harry Tolman's a great cowboy. When Harry got a hurt wrist or a hurt leg, he went home and stayed home until he healed it and then went back. But Jim, I've seen Jim ride a jillion times and win money when he was sure enough hurting. And you know, a lot of guys have seen him ride with a broke collarbone and stuff like that. You know what I mean? He just he ain't gonna go enter a rodeo when he's all hurt, but when he's there and got some good stock drawed, he's go ahead and get on them, you know, and win money. And he's one of the toughest cowboys that I know of. And,
can you think of any experiences dealing with Jim Shoulders that might be of interest here again?
Oh gosh, Ben, I could think of a bunch of them, but not any one instant right offhand. Kind of caught me cold on that.
Well, let's think of other rodeo personalities. What other Oklahoma personalities stand out to you?
Oh, there's several of them. It's been great. Everett Shaw, he's a great steer roper and calf roper and a great guy, and done a lot for the Rodeo Cowboy Association. And he one heck of a cowboy. You know, and he still is. He still ropes steers, and he's got a steer roping school, and he's getting up there in age, but he's had some real good horses. And Todd Watley, I think, was a real outstanding cowboy. He's from Hugo, Oklahoma, and he come out of them mountains and just a country kid, and sure enough got to be a great cowboy. I think he went all around, I think, 2 different years, and he's in the Hall of Fame out there, and he got killed here several years ago. But he was nothing kind of like Jim. He's real tough. He never let physical pain come between him and trying to win something, you know.
The one who's played a part in rodeo, although he was not a rodeo rider himself, was Clem McSpadden.
You bet.
Why don't you talk about Clem McSpadden from the rodeo standpoint?
I could talk about Clem McSpadden for a week. I'm real high on Clem. And he's a great guy. He's got a smile on his face. He's happy. he's made his living announcing. In fact, he's made good money announcing rodeos before he ever got involved in politics or the Senate. And what a lot of people don't know is the first time I met Clem, he was coming from the Carolinas, him and Joe Crow Jr., and they was broke, and I think it was at Monroe, Louisiana, and they was roping calves and bulldog. And Clem was a contesting cowboy. He roped and bulldog several years before he got to announcing, and he was a pretty good roper and a pretty good bulldogger. He didn't make enough money at it to suit him, and he went to college, and then when he finished his college education, he went to announcing, and he announced in the Northwest for a long time. But he has done, I don't know how much he's done for the Rodeo Cowboy Association. He has promoted rodeo. He went to Mexico on tours, and public relations wise, I don't think you can beat him. He has headed off a lot of humane deals on the East. He can go anywhere, and we're always asking him to fly somewhere to talk to a convention. And he has got a lot of people that didn't know anything about rodeo, knowledgeable about rodeos. He explains it better when he's announcing. This is my personal opinion. I think he's one of the best announcers there is in the business, and he's a real swell guy. And I've been to his house, and the phone rings all night long. And he's if he can help anybody, he's like me, he don't have a lot of money, but if he can help anybody by calling somebody or talking or getting something done, he's always doing something for somebody, which I think is a great thing. And that's just Clem Oliver. You can't hardly anybody ask him for anything that he don't know somebody to call or some way to help him out, and he's sure willing to do it. He puts in a lot of time, a lot of energy helping cowboys and rodeo.
Well, why don't you tell us a little about the quarrel that it breaks out every so often that the Humane Society has with you, and what your answer is to that?
Penn, I can tell that I'm real enthused about that subject. There are two Humane Associations, and a bajillion little fly-by-night that spring up, and the two main Humane Associations work with us real good. We work with our flanks and our horses, and they're at our rodeos, and we welcome them, and we're on real friendly terms with them, and we don't do anything that they don't sanction. And I tell it this way, a cowboy is real. He loves animals and horses. He would be in some other business. If you didn't like animals, you wouldn't be a rodeo hand. And that's the way we make our money. And these bucking horses and bulls are worth a lot of money. They're worth a lot more money than slaughter animals. And everybody takes real good care of them. And like I ride bulls and bucking horses, and I respect those animals. I love to one that bucks and try to make money on them, and I like them. And all cowboys do, and we don't hurt them. I'd rather do anything to hurt anything. And but a lot of people don't understand that. And these little fly-by-night, they say we got barbed wire bits. Well, we have halters with sheepskin on the nose to keep from hurting. We do everything we can to keep from hurting any animal. And Clem has done a lot to head a lot of that stuff off and talk to it. And it's people that don't know anything about rodeo, and they put out a lot of this false information, these pamphlets about they're got a horse's feet wired and they got this. Well, it's just absolutely untrue, a lot of it. And people, they are senators from other states, especially in the East, that do not know anything about livestock, and they don't, not saying anything against them, they are liable to back one of these bills that somebody presents against rodeo because they just don't know anything about it. And they paint them this picture and they show them all this, and they don't know any other thing, and they go along for it, and there's nothing in these fellers at all. They just are not knowledgeable rodeo people.
Why don't you comment on the Cowboy Hall of Fame?
Well, it's a great, boy, I tell you what, it's really something, and it's a beautiful place, and it's done a lot. And Gene Pruitt, he's an old cowboy and one of the best, and he was our head of the Rodeo Association for a long time, and him and I walked out of there one night, and them fountains was all going, that lights were on. It was a beautiful place, and Gene said, "Boy, Freck," he said, "ain't this great? Ain't this something?" A good friend of both ours, Bill Letterman, they just had unveiled that statue of him in there, and he said, "Boy, ain't this great?" He said, "I just never dreamed that anything like as nice as this could happen to rodeo people." And I feel just like Gene. I never dreamed of anything that nice ever happening. It's a beautiful place, and I'm so enthused about it, and I just think it's wonderful.
Would you comment on the Western Heritage Awards program?
Yeah, I really think that's something too. It's a great thing, and of course I'm a little bit I don't know who done they vote on it, I guess, but anyway, they give me that Pioneer Award at Phoenix one year, and I think it's a great deal, that them awards, and it just they keep giving me something. I don't know why. I guess because I'm getting old, but I think it's a great thing.
The National Finals Rodeo has been in Oklahoma, I believe, for 5 years now, the last 5 years, and you've been in it since long before then. Why don't you comment on the Oklahoma's experience with the National Finals and how it's worked out here?
I sure will, Penn. I'll be glad to. We started in '59 at Dallas, Texas, and the National Final was set up to move every 3 years, and that was the way the charter was set up. And we had it in Dallas for 3 years, and then we moved to Los Angeles for 3 years, and then to Oklahoma City for 3 years, supposedly. Well, it has been such a success, and I don't want to say anything in Los Angeles, but I just want to give a comparison. It was just another spectacular in Los Angeles. It was nothing special, but in Oklahoma, these people, you can't imagine how it's went over here in Oklahoma City. And it's worked so good with the Hall of Fame and everything, and all the old-time cowboys come. They come from miles and to Oklahoma City. They love to come to Oklahoma City, and the cowboys come here from all over, and they've been to Dallas. Nothing against that either, but they get treated just twice as good here in Oklahoma City as there was anywhere. Jack Roddy, lives right there in San Jose, and he's a great cowboy, and he's made the finals, I don't know, 4 or 5 different times. And he was here, and he said, "Boy, Freck," he said, "I just wish that the people in California could see how they treat cowboys here in Oklahoma City." He said, "These people are the nicest people he ever saw." He went to a jewelry store and took his watch, and when he left, they wouldn't take any money for it. And he just said, "Boy, it makes you proud to wear a hat," he said, in town down here in Oklahoma City.
Frank, this is great. Can you think of anything else that you might add?
I don't know. I'm just high on this National Finals Rodeo here. It's so dang good, and all the good stock gets to come. It really gives an incentive. Well, I'll tell you what, I went the bull riding in '62 after I was too old. Everybody forgot about me, but anyway, if it hadn't been for the National Finals Rodeo, I don't believe I'd have went to all those rodeos. But if you didn't win first before, like first, well, it was nothing. Winning third or fourth didn't mean a thing. But since they've had the finals, the top 15 get to go. It gives you an incentive to go to all the rodeos you can go to get to be in that top 15. That's just what I'd done in '59. I started going to lots of rodeos and going north, going to Pendleton and those places in Calgary that I didn't go before, trying to get into that top 15. And it has made me a lot of money, and it's helped everybody a whole bunch, and it gives cowboys something to aim towards, something to do, and whether they win the title or not, just getting to come to the finals is a big feather in your cap.
Well, thank you very, very much, Freckles Brown.